The year is 2003. The room is quiet. It is the kind of quiet that only happens in a bank. A thick carpet drinks the sound. Wood paneling absorbs the light. Frank Caldwell sits behind his desk. He is the third Caldwell to run this bank. His grandfather founded it in 1922. His father expanded it after the war. Frank is a good man. He serves on the hospital board, coaches Little League every spring. He is known for his steady hand, his calm voice, his certainty. On his desk are two documents. One is a modern title report, GPS coordinates, laser-printed lines on glossy paper. It is clean, it is precise, it is official. It shows the bank holds a lien on 400 acres, the north section of the old Hayes farm, the best land they had. The other document is old. It is a quitclaim deed from 1961. The paper is thick, yellowed at the edges. The type is from a manual Underwood. The signatures are in faded blue ink. Arthur Hayes sits across from him. He says nothing. He just waits. Frank Caldwell puts on his reading glasses. He reads the old deed for the third time. His finger traces the legal description, a long paragraph of metes and bounds. Beginning at a stone marker on the north bank of Willow Creek, thence west 2,640 feet to a point marked by an iron pin, thence north 6,600 feet to the base of a large white oak. Frank stops. His finger rests on the words white oak. He looks up at Arthur, then back down at the paper. He takes off his glasses. He rubs his eyes. The room is still quiet, but something has broken. The certainty is gone. Because this land, the land Arthur Hayes inherited, the land Frank Caldwell was about to foreclose on, was the wrong farm. And the man who told him so wasn't a lawyer. He was just a farmer. A farmer Frank had told, just 1 year earlier, that he was wrong, that he was mistaken, that he should give up. He told him with kindness. He told him with concern. He told him for his own good. And that is the most dangerous limitation of all. The one that comes from someone who genuinely believes they are protecting you. This channel tells the stories of people who were told no. People who were told they couldn't. People who were written off. If you believe these stories need to be told, subscribe. Because what happened next changed more than just one farm. It changed the whole county. Let's go back, just 1 year, to the spring of 2002. Arthur Hayes was 26 years old. His father John had died that winter, a sudden heart attack while mending a fence. He left behind a wife, a son, and a mountain of debt. The farm was 800 acres in total. It had been in the family since 1890. But times were hard. Commodity prices were in the tank. Input costs were through the roof. John had done what a lot of farmers did. He borrowed against the land. He borrowed to get through one more season, and then one more after that. The notices started arriving in April. Polite letters at first, then certified mail. From Frank Caldwell's bank, the Bank of Harrison County. The letters spoke of an outstanding loan, a principal of $150,000, plus interest, plus fees. The collateral was listed clearly. Parcel ID 734-A, 400 acres, the north section, the best soil on the property, the part with the creek frontage, the part that made the whole farm viable. Arthur knew his father had taken a loan. He wasn't naive, but he remembered the conversations, late at night, at the kitchen table. His father, tired and worried. His mother, Sarah, listening. John had said he was borrowing against the timber tract, a rough piece of land to the west, also 400 acres, land his mother had bought in the early 60s, before she even married his father. It was mostly scrub pine and rock, good for hunting. Not much else. It was not the home farm. It was not the good land. Arthur went to see Frank Caldwell. He took his father's old ledgers. He had his father's notes, scribbled on the back of a seed catalog. Loan for timber parcel. He walked into the bank, the same bank where he opened his first savings account. The teller smiled at him, called him by name. Frank's office was at the back. The door was open. Frank stood up when he saw him, shook his hand firmly, offered his condolences for his father. He meant it. Frank had known John Hayes his whole life. They were in the same graduating class, played football together. Frank was a decent man. He listened patiently. He nodded as Arthur explained. He looked at the handwritten notes. He leaned back in his leather chair. He steepled his fingers. Frank, I think there's been a mistake. My dad, he borrowed against the west parcel, the timberland, not the home farm. Frank's expression was soft. It was filled with sympathy. Arthur, he said, I understand. This is a difficult time. It's easy to get things confused. He slid a folder across the polished desk. Here are our records. He opened it. Inside was the loan agreement, signed by John Hayes, and a survey map. The map showed the 800-acre Hayes farm, and a thick red line drawn around the northern 400 acres, parcel 734-A. This is the collateral, Arthur. It's right here. The survey was done in 1998, when your father took out the loan. It's all GPS verified. Arthur stared at the map. It felt wrong. Deep in his bones, it felt wrong. But this says 734A. What's the parcel number for the timberland? Frank sighed, a patient, weary sigh. That's 739C. The loan is for 734A. It's unambiguous. But my dad, he wouldn't have... Arthur. Frank's voice was gentle, but firm. Your father was under a lot of pressure. People make decisions under pressure. Sometimes they don't tell their family everything. He wanted to protect you, to protect your mother. The words were like sand in Arthur's throat. Frank was making sense. He sounded reasonable. He sounded kind. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, but by a friend. By someone who thought they were helping you. Someone who was certain you were wrong, for your own good. It's a different kind of fight. It's a fight you can't win with anger. Tell me about a time you faced that kind of certainty. Drop a comment below. Because what Frank said next was meant to be the end of the conversation. Listen to me, son. He leaned forward. I'm not going to be the man who puts Sarah Hayes out of her house. We can work something out. We can sell the 400 acres, pay off the debt. You'll have the other half of the farm, free and clear. It's the best way forward. Don't fight this. It'll only cost you more in legal fees. It'll drag it out. It'll hurt your mother more. Trust me. This is the only way. He was so certain, so sure of his facts, so sure of his kindness. Arthur looked at the man who had known his father for 50 years, a pillar of the community, a man everyone trusted. And in that moment, Arthur felt something worse than grief. He felt the weight of being dismissed, of being told his own memory was faulty. His own father's words were meaningless. He stood up. He took the folder. Thank you for your time, Mr. Caldwell. He walked out of the bank, into the bright afternoon sun. The foreclosure notice would arrive in 30 days. He drove home. The truck felt heavy on the road. The fields blurred past his window. He found his mother in her garden, kneeling in the dirt, tending her roses. Sarah Hayes was a quiet woman. She had a strength that didn't need to announce itself. She had run the farm's books for 40 years. Her handwriting was perfect. Her ledgers were balanced to the penny. She looked up as he approached. She saw it on his face. She stood up, brushing the dirt from her knees. She didn't ask what happened. She just waited. He told her everything. Caldwell's words, the map, the certainty in his voice, the kindness that felt like a cage. He sat on the porch steps, his head in his hands. Maybe he's right, Mom. Maybe Dad just didn't tell us. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. His mother sat down beside him. She looked out at the fields, the same fields her husband's grandfather had cleared. She was silent for a long time. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the yard. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear, not loud, but absolute. Your father was many things, Arthur. He was worried, he was proud, he was tired. But he was not a liar. And he would never risk this house. Never. She put her hand on his shoulder. There's a mistake. Find it. It was not a suggestion. It was a statement of fact. That night, Arthur didn't sleep. He went into the small room off the kitchen, his mother's office. It smelled of old paper and ink. A roll-top desk was against one wall. Filing cabinets lined the other. His mother had a system for everything. Deeds, tax records, receipts for equipment bought in 1975. Everything had a place. He started pulling out files, folders thick with decades of paper. He remembered something she used to say. Whenever he and his father couldn't find a warranty or a title, she would walk to the cabinet, pull out a folder, and hand them the exact document they needed. She would tap the paper with her finger. Paper remembers what men forget. That phrase echoed in his mind. Paper remembers. He started with the file labeled Timber Tract. Inside was a mess of old tax bills, hand-drawn maps, letters from a forestry service, and at the very bottom, a folded, brittle document. It was the original deed, from 1961, the year his mother bought the land. She was 22 years old. She had used her inheritance from her grandmother, $3,000, cash. He unfolded it carefully. The legal description was dense, a single block of text. He read the words, "Thence north 6,600 feet to the base of a large white oak." It meant nothing to him, just words on a page. He compared it to the bank's survey map. The bank's map didn't mention trees. It mentioned GPS coordinates. It mentioned steel pins set by modern surveyors. The two documents seemed to describe two different worlds. One was a world of landmarks, of stone markers and trees. The other was a world of satellites and data points. He knew the bank's world was the one that mattered now, but his mother's voice was in his head. Find the mistake. The next morning, he drove to the county seat, to the Register of Deeds office. It was in the basement of the courthouse, a low-ceilinged room. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decaying paper. A woman named Gloria sat behind the counter. She had worked there for 40 years. She knew every plat book, every volume, every forgotten survey. He told her what he was looking for: maps of the Hayes farm and the surrounding parcels, going back to the 1960s. She looked at him over her glasses. What for? There's a dispute with the bank. She nodded slowly. There are always disputes with the bank. She led him to a back room, shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, lined with enormous leather-bound books, plat books. Each one weighed 50 pounds. She pulled one down, laid it on a heavy oak table. The pages crackled as she turned them. This is 1960 to 1970. Find your township, then your section. Good luck. He spent the rest of the day in that room. He pulled down book after book. His hands were black with dust. He found his family's farm, a hand-drawn square with Hayes written in the middle. He saw the timber tract right next to it, unmarked in 1960. Then, in 1962, his mother's name appeared. S. Miller, her maiden name. He traced the lines with his finger. He compared them to the old deed. They matched. But he couldn't find the mistake. The parcels were distinct. The boundaries were clear. His farm was one property. The timberland was another. He went back every day for a week, then 2 weeks. People in town started to talk. That Hayes boy, losing his mind from grief, spending his days in the courthouse basement, fighting the bank. What a fool. Frank Caldwell is a fair man. He's trying to help the boy. The boy is just stubborn, like his father. He heard the whispers at the feed store, at the post office. Some people avoided his eyes. Others looked at him with pity. One day, an old farmer stopped him, a man named Silas Croft. He was in his 80s. His hands were gnarled like oak roots. "I hear you're looking at old maps, son." Arthur nodded. "Yes, sir." Silas chewed on a piece of straw. "Banks don't care about old maps. They care about their new ones, the ones their computers draw." "I know, but there's a mistake. I can feel it." Silas looked at him for a long time. "My father used to say, the map isn't the land is the land. You go walk the lines. Don't just read about them, walk them." That weekend, Arthur did. He took the old deed from 1961 and a compass. He drove out to the timber tract. He found the creek. He found what looked like an old stone marker. He started walking, pacing off the distances, 2,640 feet west. He pushed through thorny underbrush. He stepped over fallen logs. He searched for an iron pin. He found nothing. He kept going. 6,600 feet north. He was in the thickest part of the woods now. Tall pines blocked out the sun. He was looking for a large white oak, the landmark from the deed. He walked the line 3 times. There was no giant oak tree. There were pines. There were maples. There were smaller oaks, but nothing that matched the description. He sat on a log, defeated. Silas was wrong. Caldwell was right. His father had mortgaged the home farm. He had just been trying to hide it. As he sat there, he noticed something. A massive shape on the ground nearby. It was a stump, but it was huge, easily 10 feet across. It was blackened and splintered. The ground around it was scarred. He walked over to it. He ran his hand over the rough surface. It was a white oak, or what was left of it. And then he remembered a story his father used to tell about a huge thunderstorm back in the early 70s. He would have been just a baby. Lightning hit the biggest tree in the county, an old white oak on the edge of their property, split it right down the middle. It had to be taken down a few years later. It was a landmark, and now it was gone. He looked at the deed in his hand, to the base of a large white oak. The survey for that deed was done in 1961, when the tree was still standing. He raced back to his truck. He drove back to the courthouse. Gloria was getting ready to close up. "Wait," he said. "I need to see something else. The tax maps, from the 1970s. She sighed, but she led him back to the shelves. He pulled out the book for 1975. He flipped to his township, and he saw it. His heart started pounding. In the 1960s plat book, the parcels were numbered by owner. But sometime around 1974, the county had re-indexed everything. They implemented a new system, a grid-based system, and they gave every piece of land a new number. His family farm, the original 800 acres, was now 2 parcels. The southern half was 734-B, The northern half was 734-A. The timber tract, which had been just S. Miller, was now 739C. He stared at the numbers. 734A. The number on the bank's foreclosure notice. Then he saw the note. A tiny handwritten annotation in the margin of the 1975 map, next to the timber tract. It said, "Formerly known as North Hayes Tract per local survey." His breath caught in his throat. It was all there. His mother had bought the timberland in 1961. Locally, people knew it as the North Hayes Tract because it was north of the main road. And it was owned by a future Hayes. His father, years later, had gone to the bank. He asked for a loan against the North Hayes Tract. He meant the timberland. The bank officer, a younger man then, had looked at the brand new 1975 county map. He saw Hayes, and he saw a parcel labeled 734-A, the northern half of the home farm. He never checked the old surveys. He never cross-referenced the deeds. He just put 734-A on the loan document, and his father, John Hayes, who trusted the bank, who didn't read the fine print of legal descriptions, he signed it. For 25 years, the mistake sat there, a time bomb on a piece of paper, waiting. The bank's modern GPS survey in 1998 had only confirmed the initial error. They surveyed parcel 734-A. They didn't survey the history. They didn't survey the intent. Paper remembers what men forget, but sometimes it remembers the wrong thing. Arthur made copies of the 1961 deed, of the 1965 plat map, of the 1975 tax map with the handwritten note. He paid Gloria $10 in quarters. She looked at the papers in his hand. She looked at his face. "You found it, didn't you?" He just nodded. He felt a strange calm. It wasn't triumph. It was just clarity. The next morning, he called Frank Caldwell's office. He asked for a meeting. He said he had new information. He didn't argue. He didn't accuse. He just stated a fact. He arrived at the bank at 10 o'clock sharp. He wore a clean shirt. He carried a single manila folder. Frank was waiting for him. His expression was the same, patient, concerned, a little sad. "Arthur," he began, "I hope you've reconsidered. This isn't going to help." Arthur didn't say a word. He opened the folder. He laid the 1961 deed on the desk, right next to the bank's glossy title report. Then he laid out the 1965 map and the 1975 map. He placed them in a row, a story told in paper and ink. Then he took his finger and he pointed. He pointed to his mother's maiden name on the first map. He pointed to the legal description on the deed. He pointed to the handwritten note on the second map, formerly known as North Hayes Tract. And then he pointed to the two different parcel numbers, 734-A and 739-C. He didn't explain. He didn't interpret. He let the paper speak. And this is where we came in, with Frank Caldwell sitting at his desk, staring at the evidence. The room went silent. The hum of the bank's air conditioning seemed to fade away. Frank put on his glasses. He picked up the 1961 deed. He read the description of the boundaries. His eyes lingered on the words, White Oak. He looked at Arthur. The oak tree on that line was struck by lightning in '72. My dad told me about it. It's just a stump now. Frank leaned back in his chair. He looked out the window for a long time. He looked at the town his family had helped build. He looked at the bank that bore his name. A bank built on certainty, on the integrity of its records. He turned back to Arthur. His face was pale. He picked up the phone on his desk. He dialed an extension. Mary, get me the file for the Hayes loan. The original from 1978. Yes, the one from the archives. He hung up. They sat in silence for 5 minutes. It felt like an hour. A young woman came in with a dusty file. She placed it on the desk and left. Frank opened it. He pulled out the original loan application. In the section for property description, in his father's familiar handwriting, were the words, "The North Hayes Timber Tract." But below it, in the typed section filled out by the bank officer, it read, Parcel ID 734-A. The contradiction had been there for 25 years, and no one had ever seen it, because no one had ever looked. They just trusted the number. Frank closed the folder. He pushed it to the side. He folded his hands on his desk. He looked Arthur Hayes in the eye. "My God, son," he said it softly, almost a whisper. "We were wrong. We were wrong." Arthur just nodded. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't gloat. He just let the truth settle in the room. Frank stood up. He walked around the desk. He extended his hand. "Arthur, I am deeply sorry. This never should have happened. We will fix this. Today, we will release the lien on your farm. We will correct the title. There will be no cost to you. And the outstanding loan," he paused, "the bank will consider it paid in full, for our error." It was more than Arthur had expected, but he knew it wasn't about the money. It was about the mistake. It was about a good man realizing his certainty had almost destroyed another family. Proving someone wrong who thinks they're being kind is the loneliest fight there is, because they don't see you as an adversary. They see you as a project, something to be fixed, something to be protected from yourself. Arthur left the bank that day with a clear title, but he left with something else too, a new understanding. The map isn't the land. Paper remembers, but you have to know how to read it. That's not the end of the story. Let me tell you what happened over the next 20 years. Because this is where the story becomes bigger than one farm. Arthur didn't just save his own land. He kept learning. He spent his evenings in the courthouse basement with Gloria. She taught him how to trace a title back to the original land patent, how to read the faded script of 19th century surveyors. He became an expert, not a lawyer, not a surveyor, something else, a historian of the dirt. And he started to help his neighbors. In 2004, the Miller family, down the road, was in a boundary dispute with a new developer from the city. The developer had a GPS survey. The Millers had a fence that had been there for 100 years. The developer was suing to have it moved. It would cost the Millers 10 acres of their best pasture. Arthur spent a week in the archives. He found a survey from 1902. It mentioned a witness tree, a sycamore. The tree was long gone, but Arthur found the stump, right where the old fence post stood. The developer dropped the lawsuit. Arthur didn't charge a dime. In 2006, he heard about a widow over in the next county, losing her land to a tax sale. The county claimed she owed back taxes on 120 acres. She insisted she only owned 80. Arthur went to the records. He discovered that a surveying error in 1953 had incorrectly combined her parcel with a neighboring one. She had been paying taxes on her neighbor's land for 50 years. The county had to refund her thousands of dollars. He did it for the cost of gas. Word started to spread. This quiet farmer, this man who knew the old ways, the man who could read the land's memory. He started buying land himself, small, forgotten parcels, land with clouded titles that no one else would touch. A 20-acre piece in 2008. The heirs couldn't agree on the boundaries. Arthur found the original survey stakes. He bought it for $1,000, cash. A 50-acre tract in 2011. It had been tied up in an estate for 60 years. The legal description was a mess. Arthur spent a month sorting it out. He bought it for $5,000. Cash. By 2015, he had added 300 acres to his farm, piece by piece. All of it paid for with money he earned. No loans, no banks. His mother's words echoed in his work. Paper remembers. Frank Caldwell watched all of this. He would see Arthur at the diner. He would read about him in the local paper. He saw the Hayes farm thriving. He saw the new barns go up, the new equipment in the fields. He never forgot his mistake. It had humbled him. It had made him a better banker. He started a new policy at his bank. Every agricultural loan required a full title search, back at least 75 years, no exceptions. He told every new loan officer the story of Arthur Hayes. He told them about the white oak tree, about the handwritten note in the margin. He told them, "Certainty is the enemy of diligence." One day in 2018, Frank retired. His last act as president of the bank was to write a check, a personal check, for $50,000. He drove out to the Hayes farm. Arthur was in the machine shed, working on a tractor. Frank handed him the envelope. "What's this?" "It's for you, for what you're doing. Call it an investment." Arthur opened it. He saw the amount. He tried to give it back. "Frank, I can't take this." Frank put up his hand. "Don't argue with me, son. I've been watching you for 15 years. You're doing God's work. You're protecting people. This bank, my family, we owe you. Use it to keep going." Arthur used that money to start a foundation, the Hayes Land Title Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping family farmers with title disputes, with boundary issues, with the kind of problems that fall through the cracks of the modern legal system. The foundation has a small office now, in the county seat. It's run by Arthur's son, John, named after the grandfather he never met. They have helped over 200 families, across 3 states. They have saved an estimated 5,000 acres of family farmland. From foreclosure, from developers, from the quiet, creeping errors of time. All because one man was told no, and his mother told him to find the mistake. In the foundation's office, on the wall behind John's desk, hangs a simple frame. Inside, protected by archival glass, is a quitclaim deed from 1961. The paper is yellow, the ink is faded, but the words are still clear. Thence north 6,600 feet to the base of a large white oak. Sometimes John will be working late. The office will be quiet. He'll get up from his desk. He'll walk over to the frame. He'll place his hand on the cool glass, right over his grandmother's signature. A woman he barely remembers, but whose legacy he lives every single day. He closes his eyes, and he thinks about the chain of events. A young woman's foresight to buy a piece of land, a mother's unwavering belief in her husband's integrity, a son's stubborn refusal to be dismissed, a forgotten landmark, a lightning strike, a handwritten note in a dusty book. These are the things that history turns on, not the grand gestures, but the small details, the quiet truths that wait patiently on paper, waiting for someone to care enough to look. Paper remembers what men forget. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is being told they are wrong. They are being dismissed with kindness. They are being handed a glossy report, a modern map, a computer printout. And they are being told that their memory, their family story, their truth, is a mistake. They are being told to give up, for their own good. The most dangerous limitation is the one you are told is for your own protection. Because you can fight cruelty, you can resist oppression. But how do you fight concern? How do you argue with someone who is certain they are helping you? You don't. You can't. You can only do the work. You go to the basement. You open the books. You walk the land. You find the truth that has been forgotten, and you lay it on the table, quietly, factually, without anger. And you let the paper speak. If this story means something to you, if you know someone who is fighting their own quiet battle against a kind certainty, share this with them. Let them know they are not alone. And subscribe for more stories about the people who prove the world wrong. 1 acre, 1 deed, 1 quiet truth at a time.